Okay. So, consolidation po to. It's consolidated, and the other operative word is unanimously approved, right, at the House Committee. What does that mean, in your assessment, in terms of what does this mean for, and what does it bode in any way differently for this divorce bill?
Well, when we say unanimously, that means to say during the voting, no one gave no vote. This is with respect to the regular members and ex-official members of the committee. So there was unanimity, a total endorsement of the same. And this is a good omen, if you say omen, because the committee is bipartisan, and it is reflective of the complexion of the plenary. And if we take that into consideration, then there would be a smooth sailing for the divorce bill in the plenary, particularly so when the Speaker Velasco, is in favor of the measure because he introduced perfecting amendments which the committee admitted and incorporated in the substitute bill.
So the question is, how, what is the likelihood that this will actually end up being law? Because it will still have to go through plenary, and then after that, the Senate will also have to vote on committee level, and then you will have to reconcile, and the president will have to sign, and we're heading into election season. And if I remember right, the previous Congress also filed a bill later in their term so that it never really met the deadline. Bakit po parang laging late na pagka nag-move toward a divorce bill? Ang daming tuloy nagsasabi na pakitang tao lang yan para ipakita na, yan yung mga issue na kinampanya namin, kinary on namin. But really, what's the likelihood that this will actually be law?
Well, we should remember that during the 17th Congress, a similar bill was already approved on third and final reading by the House of Representatives. But unfortunately, the Senate was not able to act on it because of lack of time, because of time constraints. Now, Luigi, in the Congress, once the leadership of both houses would endorse a measure, then it can be expeditiously approved. And I think, with respect to the House of Representatives, there is now a go signal from the Speaker to fast-track the approval of this measure because no less than the Speaker introduced perfecting amendments.
You think this is enough to sway the Senate President? And I think several senators are also against it. You think this is enough to sway them to support such a bill?
Well, we are hopefully expecting that with the passage of this bill in the committee and subsequently in the plenary, this would influence the Senate to do the same. You would remember, Ami, that during the deliberations and proceedings on the reproductive health measure, there were a number of senators who were hesitant or had reservations with respect to the measure. But when the House passed its counterpart measure, the Senate also did approve their own measure so that we were able to conduct a bicameral conference committee, and eventually this reproductive health bill is now a law.
Yes, sir. Pero sir, I would need to go back to Luchi's question kasi it is already mid-August and maliban dun sa election season coming up, it is going to be a presidential election. So you'd imagine by by late this year, early next year, hindi na papasok yung ilang mga politiko at ilang legislators. You also have the budget process magsisimula na yan very soon. And siyempre, priority yan going into an election year for both chambers of Congress. As well, you'd imagine that a lot of legislators would want to prioritize other things. For example, COVID. We are still in the middle of a pandemic. So that does raise a question as to whether or not you are realistically confident that this will get further than it did in the 17th Congress.
Well, I think since we are advocating for this measure, we should be optimistic, but realistic at the same time. We know that we have the budget to tackle, but initially, the budget will be in the Appropriations Committee, not in the plenary. So the plenary would be free to discuss this measure. Then also, the election fever most probably would come still in early next year. So we still have time to deliberate and approve this measure. And when we come back, most probably there will be time to finalize this divorce bill, and hopefully with a bicameral conference committee with the Senate.
But beyond time constraints and beyond legislative process constraints, there is the ever-lingering question of what positioning on divorce might mean for anybody looking for a position in 2022. So just to add to Ed's question, how confident are you that a vote on this and support for this will be insulated from, let's put it very bluntly, people's considerations of how the Catholic Church might perceive this?
Well, that is a question which we really appreciate. But we would like to underscore that the opposition of the Catholic hierarchy with respect to the divorce law bill is much, much less than its objection to the reproductive health bill. There is a reason for this, because the Catholic Church has its own canonical tribunal which dissolves marriages. So there is a counterpart version in the Catholic Church of a secular divorce. Number two, 100% of the Catholic countries in the world have their own absolute divorce laws. So that, in a sense, would be telling us that the Philippines should not be left alone. And then also, that would also say that there can be no unanimity and error by the Catholic countries and other countries of having or sustaining an absolute divorce law. And lastly, even the Pope has looked so kindly on divorced people or remarried people, so much so that now they could, it's encouraged that they should be given the Holy Eucharist.
Congressman, with all the urgent issues being faced by the country, the only way I can see this passing, hurdling Congress, is if it's given the priority that it needs by the President himself. You think President Duterte will certify this bill as urgent? Kasi he has certified several other bills, mostly for dealing with the pandemic, but this is not included in his priority agenda. You think it will get support from Malacanang?
It would be hard to divine the intention or decision of the President with respect to this measure. But as far as we know, there are no strong arguments being foisted by Malacanang against this measure. And most probably at the proper time, when this bill is now in the plenary, the President may even consider having this measure approved. because we all know that the President is very consistent in his support of the reproductive health measure. That is on record. And he has issued two executive orders promoting reproductive health. Since this bill on absolute divorce is a sequel to the reproductive health bill, and the central figure here would be the women, then most probably the President can consider certifying this as an urgent measure. Considering also that the Congress has already acted on a number of measures relative to the pandemic.